Okay, everybody, welcome. It is right at 7 o'clock. I'm sure we might have some other people coming in. Dr. Church is occupied on a phone call. He got a call from the assistant principal, so he stepped off for a little bit. I am recording this. It is September the 2nd, and this is MELS 601, and this is the second class.
Hey, Jill, how are you?
Yeah, so
Not at all.
go ahead and make a little adjustment here. Okay, good deal, good deal. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So how's everybody's week been? I don't see a lot of smiles, see a little bit of nods. Well, I'm sorry, Rachel, what did you say?
Exhausting, but it's well. Yeah, we're on a hybrid schedule. So 2 days in with the kids, and today, Wednesdays are remote, and then tomorrow, Friday.
Wow, so you're doing remote on Wednesday, so you guys can do deep cleaning and stuff. Wow. I guess it is hectic for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually won't go. I think I might have told you this last week, but we won't go on having kids in the building until next Tuesday. We decided to stay in to remote until September the 8th. Then we'll be going on an A-B day, 5 days a week, doing our deep cleaning in the evenings. So what you're feeling now, we'll feel next week. So congratulations on getting started and putting kids in the building. I hope everybody stays safe and healthy and it goes well. Hope and pray it goes well for all of us. I think just regardless of anything else, just the fact that we got kids in the building, it's good for students, it's good for teachers, even though it pushes their limits. I certainly understand that. It's good for parents, but I think it's good for the community. It's good for the community to seeing that we're getting back somewhat a little closer, making progress to where we came from. So I think when schools are active and students are in the building, I think overall for the community, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But I certainly understand. I have visited a few schools this week, and you know, I see the stress on the faces, and you know, and the concern of the teachers too. I mean, we're having to deal with our family situation and worries that we have with our own families, and then help assure and reassure other people in their family. So I tell you, it's a great time for the world or the nation, in my opinion, to recognize the value that teachers have in society. Not that there's never been a time that they didn't have value, but now I believe people will see just how much public school system aids to the community. So I'm going to step off my soapbox. Sorry about that. I have a tendency to jump on there. So feel free to refocus me, because I can ramble quite a bit. We're going to go ahead and get started. Well, let me ask you this. Anybody else have any comments? Certainly feel free to chime in. Or if you have any questions that you just kind of burning a hole in your mind and you want to get rid of it. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do is, we got a few more people coming on. I am going to pull up a document that we used last night in my other MELS 601 cohort. And you should be able to see a Word document that says week 2 agenda, class Zoom. It says September the 2nd. It did say September the 1st, but of course I updated it for tonight's session. And just wanted to go over with you and give you a little more information about task 1. We're going to talk just a little bit about what I will be doing with you and how we'll be working together this semester. And then we're going to kind of go through briefly the internship hours, the clinical internship handbook, and that'll kind of wrap it up. Of course, we'll turn it back over to Dr. Church anytime that he needs to take the reins. Has anybody, and you can just, you know, give me a thumbs up or nod your head, has anybody's site supervisor got in contact with them yet? Not site supervisor, so sorry. Clinical coach one, clinical coach one. Okay, I have seen some nods. Okay, great, 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 great. Have seen some nods. Thanks for typing that in the chat box. Good, good. If they haven't, they should be getting in contact with you pretty soon. If you do not hear from them by Monday, next Monday, of course that's Labor Day, but let's say Tuesday, by next Tuesday, if you have not heard from them by next Tuesday, reach out and let me know. Most of them, sometimes it's just a matter of the clinical coach one being able to get to the area where you're at and set up to make it, make it as most convenient for everybody and efficient, or they're in the same area visiting schools that are close together. So sometimes it takes a while to get the logistics of that worked out, but now it's all virtual. So it should happen. If it hasn't happened by Monday, let me know. They should have gone over with you some things. If I remember correct, some of you I'm not sure who the other clinical coach ones are that's going out there. I know Steve Marie may have some of you. He's actually was my old high school football coach. Great guy, great guy. And we talked briefly last week about what he would be going over with you. So anything that he went over with you, we will go over again. I seen somebody said Rod Ramsey. I know Dr. Ramsey, great guy too, great guy. So anything that they've gone over with you, we will go over again. As far as you heard me talk about the process, the protocol, the things that are going to become routine for you, we will go over them. We will go over them again. We will go over them again. We will be going over it so much this semester that you'll be tired of hearing it. You'll say, Dr. Bullis, I got it. You can shut up now. So that's how many times you're going to hear me say the same thing over and over and over, because that's going to help you get this established in your mind and it become routine for you. Let's see, I'm going to make sure I don't want to miss anything on the chat box. Okay, all right, Dr. Revis, great, great. Good clinical coach one people are out there, very knowledgeable, and they should have helped you tremendously. So that's great, that's great. All right, so let's talk about task one a little bit. Then we're going to talk about the handbook, clinical coach handbook. Then we want to kind of mention a little bit about our first class, where it's just us outside of your course, your MELS 601 course. With the APSL, I'm just going to talk about the first task. Last week we went over the APSL. We talked about, kind of get geared up, start doing your PLC research, start talking to your administrator, your site supervisor about starting the PLC. And go ahead and start getting that stuff kind of together to where you can begin to write your narrative, because this is what you're doing for the APSL, the analysis and action plan for student learning. The analysis and action plan for student learning is referred to as the APSL. The APSL has 5 tasks. We do each task individually. They're all come connected at the end. But to help you and to help us, and just to kind of make sure that we get one part nailed down really good before we move to the next part, they're separated. So right now you just focus on task 1. Don't worry about task 2, 3, 4, and 5. We'll get to that. So right now we're just focusing on task 1. Task 1, basically you create a PLC. You do some research on the PLC. You show that you have knowledge in the PLC. You do some of those fundamental keys that are essential in establishing the professional learning community. I bet we all could raise our hand and say, I am in a PLC or have been part of a PLC, and it was nothing like what I've been reading in research. It was no more than just a team meeting. We talked about field trips, or we talked about student grades or student absences, and we really didn't dig into the data and make some informed decisions, or we really didn't get into planning together. So this is your chance to really create your own PLC and show your leadership, and I'll get into leadership competencies here a little more later on, but show your leadership skills and your developing leadership skills and taking a group of people and facilitating that group towards something positive at your school. So if you haven't, well, Monday, it was either Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. They offered the APA webinar. Some of you may have attended Tuesday. I think the other night was tonight at 6 6 p.m. You may have attended that. Is it tomorrow night? Okay, great. Thanks. Great. Love the hand signals. Thank you so much. So it was tomorrow night. So Starlet and let's see, there was somebody else. I missed them now, but I'm going to depend on your hand signals because you're really, you're the screens I'm seeing now. So thank you so much for doing that for me. So tomorrow night, if you hadn't attended yet, attend tomorrow night. And they will go over with you about some of the ins and outs using APA guide on writing your task. As you from here on, whatever you learn in there, you'll be using for the remainder of the program. A big switch for you in the 7th edition from what we're used to in the 6th edition is when you're writing, you can actually write in first person. For years, even when I was in the master's program at Gardner-Webb University, and actually I was in the first doctoral cohort with Gardner-Webb University, we were writing third person. Even way back then, you had to write in third person. You couldn't write in first person. It showed bias. If you said I, that's showing that you're biased. So you have to be in the third person. The candidate did this. The researcher did that. Now it's a total flip on that. You guys can actually write in the first person. You'll find out more about that tomorrow night. Also, probably what they'll be talking to you about is cover sheet or title page. Your ABSL will need a title page. And you don't have to put it in front of every task. I certainly want to see it in task 1 at the beginning of task 1. It will eventually be your title page for the whole ABSL. I want to see it in task 1. You can include it in task 2 if you want to, in task 3, 4, and 5. That's fine. But if you don't, I do want something up in the heading that lets me know that I'm looking at task 2 beyond this. So we'll talk more about that later. So we're going to stay focused on task 1, like I said. So in task 1, the first thing you need to create is your title page. There is examples in the syllabus. There's some examples in the course content, the templates, resources in your Blackboard shell that'll kind of talk to you about how to create a title page. Basically, it'll be the title of the evidence, which is the ABSL, that particular task, Gardner-Webb University, your name is basically what it is. There's certainly within the Blackboard shell, you can find some examples of that. And then you're going to write your school profile. This school profile will actually be something that you will use. What you create will be something that you'll use through all the MELS program. At the beginning of each evidence, you will show this school profile. What that school profile is designed to do is it will give the reader, whether it's me, whether it's Dr. Church, whether it's the evaluator, it will give the reader a essential background of the environment that you're going to be working in. So you talk about your school, and that will let the reader know how to understand what you're saying about your school, how to understand what you're doing. It'll give them a historical context, if you will, of where you're coming from and where the school is coming from. So in that, like I said, you'll use it every each evidence. You'll do a school profile. It may change a little bit from 601 to 602 to 603 to 604, kind of depending on the focus of that particular evidence. But basically, it'll say the same, and you'll use it from now on. So in that, you'll need to look at census data, school report card, plans that your school system submits throughout the year, information about the size of the community, the average income of the community, the school enrollment, grade levels of the students. What's the ethnicity of the students? What are the subgroups there at your school? Also, school personnel. What's the experience level? What's the degree level? How many national board certified teachers do you have on staff? And also a lot of qualitative data that shows the culture of your school. What's your school proud of? What do they portray out to the community? Giving the reader that type of information will really help them at getting a clear picture of the work that you're going to be doing in each evidence, but here in the ABSL as well. So it just kind of sets the foundation for the rest of your narrative. So you write that narrative, you write it in a professional, it's to be a professional document, APA, as I said, and you'll get more information on that if you haven't already. As far as double space, font, whatever. If I ever see it, and Dr. Church and I ever see something that you're kind of off track on that, we'll let you know. Make sure that you proof for spelling. I'm going to be frank with you. I'm a terrible speller, and if you hear me talking enough, you will understand that I'm terrible at grammar and even putting the comma, even when I'm talking at the right place. I know it's amazing I've gotten as far as I have. It's just the blessings of God. I will tell you that right up. But go ahead. What I did when I was coming through master's program and even in getting my doctorate is I found somebody that was really good at that stuff, that was really good about proofing and editing, and I got them to look it over. I got them to catch my grammar mistakes. I got them to catch my punctuation mistakes. I got them to catch my spelling mistakes before it went to anybody for review. If you're great at that, then super. You dive in and you do it. We won't have to worry about it. If you're not, find somebody that will help you with that. But as I said, it needs to be a professional document. Any questions on anything that I've said so far? All right, so let's kind of, oh, wait a minute, hold on. There's something in the chat here. That is a great question, Ashley. Usually get that every semester. How long does it be? How long does it need to be? What's the length? How many pages does each task need to be? They need to be as long as you think they need to be. And I know, boy, that's not an answer you wanted to hear. You wanted me to say, you know, blank pages. Whatever you need to write to tell the story, whatever you need to write to show the evidence, whatever you need to talk about to give a clear understanding to your reader of what's going on, you determine that. I really don't pay attention to the length of pages. Now, yeah, if something comes through and there's 3 paragraphs and somebody says I'm done, I'm really going to dig through that. I'm going to make sure that they're really given a clear understanding of what they want to portray to the reader. And, you know, I would be hard pressed to be convinced that you could get it done in 1 page. So you write. I tell you the same thing I used to tell my doctoral students when they were doing their dissertations. Just write. Write professionally, use the APA guide, and just write. When Dr. Church reviews it, when I review it, that's when we'll start doing the tweaking. That's when we'll do the kind of the refining a little bit and polishing it up a little bit. And then we'll kind of guide you into the content and how the flow of the content works, and we'll get it. So you tell your story and show that you're a leader. When you're doing the writing in this narrative, it's all about where you're at as a leader, what potential do you have to become an even greater leader, and your journey to that point. And you need to show how you lead, what you've learned, how you've improved, the strengths that you already have as a leader. So you need to do that in what you say. So the length is going to be up to you, basically.
And the main thing is follow the rubric. And if you meet the rubric, some of you can meet the rubric in 5, 6, 7 pages. But as long as you meet the rubric, then that's all that matters. And
Yeah,
if you meet it well.
Thank you, Dr. Church. Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Dr. Church, do you want to take back over, or are you good to let me continue?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to kind of go over a little bit more on task 1 of the ABSL. So now that you kind of got the research done, you know, you need to start your writing. You get your APA foundation, start your writing. And what you'll need to do is as you look at that scale handbook and as you look at the information, and my default's always the scale handbook. That's where the description of the task is at, the prompts related to the task, and the rubric are at. And that's when I look at your paper and I look for any revisions that's needed. That's what I do. I just don't look at one of them. I just don't look at the rubric, and I just don't look at the prompt, and I just don't look at the description, because there's information in each that will help you build a level 3, which is proficient, or level 4, which is accomplished narrative. So that's what I would recommend to you, is to look at all 3 of those: the description, the prompt, and the rubric, when you start doing your narrative and you kind of shaping this document. So talking about prompt 1. Prompt 1 is you need to get approval of your school leadership to start the you research the tenets and functions, the essentials of creating a professional learning community as you assume a professional learning community role. A lot of questions I get is, well, what if I'm already in a PLC? We kind of touched base on that last week. If you're in a PLC and you want to use that PLC, it's possible if you're in a leadership role of that PLC, or you can assume a leadership role in that PLC. If you can't, then basically you need to go ahead and create your own. And as I can't remember, I've got 3 cohorts, 1 604 and 2 601s. Sometimes it's harder for me to remember who I told what. So if I told you something that I already told you once, just kind of bear with me because I can't remember what cohorts heard what. But there is a great deal of value in creating your own professional learning community from start. Here's a great opportunity to do it, support from your administration to do it. There's value in learning and knowledge in creating your own PLC outside of the PLC that you may be involved in. That's all I'm going to say about that. So then you write about getting permission from your principal to do that. Then you talk about the research. It says minimum of 3 sources. And people will look at this. They'll look and see how many sources you've got. And so you need to have a minimum of 3. I like to see 5. So we'll say 3 to 5. I know Dr. Church has kind of made that statement before too. So we'll say 3 to 5 sources about PLC research. And just in addition to that, talk about maybe at the end in a little brief summary, talk about how that research has, and you'll see it in the rubric or the prompt one, I can't remember, but how that research has kind of formed your opinion of what a PLC will be. Kind of bring that back to you. And there's a good time to display your growth as a leader is, how do you feel about a PLC? And it doesn't have to be long, but how do you feel about a PLC after you did that research? And that kind of brings it back and kind of sets it up actually for the next section, and that's PLC selection. Who do you want to bring to the table? Doesn't need, it could be your best friend, it could not be your best friend, doesn't matter. But who do you want to bring to the table as far as your PLC team to do what you need them to do? You want to talk about who you identified, why you identified them, what strengths do they have, what do they bring to the table to assist in this PLC. They may have some, when you're picking your team members, you may pick somebody that's strong in one area and weak in another, and then somebody else is strong in that other person's weak area, and they complement each other. And I tell you what, that's a key opportunity for you to show leadership, and because a part of being a leader is being able to recognize the leadership potential in others, putting them in positions to where they can succeed. So as you talk about that PLC team selection, if a lot of people, just say teacher A, teacher B, or subject X, or what, A, B, or C, they don't use names. You can use names if you want to. And some people tell you not to. And I'm just saying, if you do use somebody's name, make sure you have permission to use their name. Make sure your principal knows that you're going to be using the name of the school. Make sure that your principal is okay with you using their name. So just make sure that's all up in the air to begin with. I'm going to jump on the chat real quick because I saw 2 pop up. Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Church. Go ahead and put that in there as you deem needed. PLC meeting. In task 1, one of the last things you're going to do is have the meeting. The meeting is where you bring that team together and you discuss the vision and the purpose of the PLC team, and you write up what that is. When you did your research, there were some essential things that need to happen as far as the professional learning community is concerned. Norms and protocols. What's the keys? What's the focus? What's the mission? You talk about that with your team. You may already have an idea of what you want to do as far as, this is an action plan, or what you want to make that action plan do. Put that aside right now. Just focus on getting your team together and having that conversation with the team. we're going to lay the foundations of what a professional learning community is very first. Before we do anything else, we're all going to agree that our professional learning community is this, this, and this, that our focus is going to be this, this, and this, and that our purpose is going to be this, this, and this. And you write about that and how you facilitated that conversation. And, you know, when I look at these, it's always helpful to, I see, especially if it's identified in the rubric, I see this kind of divided out the way it is in the rubric or the prompt. So, you know, start out with your title page, school profile, subheading. Talk about your school profile. Next subheading, PLC research. Next subheading, PLC selection. Next subheading, PLC meeting. It helps the reader identify what you mean to submit for proof of what's in the rubric. It's always good to organize your paper that way. I think in some of the examples that you'll be getting, it's laid out that way as well. So in order to pass the task, when it's evaluated, you know, I grade on 100, and it's either going to be 100 or nothing with me. And I won't take a grade on it until it's 100. We'll revise it and we'll get it to 100 before it's 100. And the only reason I take 100 as a grade, and we'll talk about how I'll grade another time, but that helps me keep up with who's done what and where you're at in the process. But when it goes to evaluation, it's evaluated basically in 4 columns: 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 is proficient. That's the minimum. That's what you need to have to pass. 4 is accomplished. That's the maximum. So we're going to get your paper either somewhere between 3 and 4. And then once this task 1 is for 3 and 4, we're going to move on to task 2. And then we'll get task 2 to a 3 or 4, and then we'll move on from there. So on the rubric, 3 is proficient, 4 is accomplished. What do you need to be proficient? Well, a minimum of 3 sources. And I know some of you are saying, I don't care about 3, show me what I need to do a 4. Dr. Church told you last week, you know, a 4 is great, but I'll be honest with you, in any interview that I've ever had, whether I was the interviewee or the interviewer, I never asked anybody if they scored a 4 on their task during their Gardner-Webb graduate program. So if you shoot 4 4s, sometimes, well, in this example, a 4 is just showing proof that you use technology, that you use some type of technology during this process of task 1. That will get you from a 3 to a 4. So sometimes it's a little bit more. So that's up to you. But you know, we're looking to get your paper to a 3. When I'm talking to you and giving you advice, I'm looking to get it to a 3 because that's what you need to move on in the program. We talked about, you know, when you're picking the people, about the strengths, you talk about their strengths and get into 3, you use a minimum of 3 sources. You discuss your PLC members. What role do they play in the PLC? What are their strengths? Any other significant information that made them someone that you would have wanted on your team? And then you talk about how you discuss the vision and the purpose of the PLC. You talk about the meeting. Now, like I said, to get higher than a 3, you talk about using some kind of basic technologies to communicate. Email, you know, now you could do a Zoom meeting. Everybody's Zoom professionals nowadays. That would put you to a 4 because it's just basic technologies. Also, putting it on YouTube, sharing it with your team members. That's just some basic technologies that you can show to get it to 4. And I want to stop right now and I want to talk about that. Just for the nature of what you're doing, you're going to create products. Okay, you talk about what you did in the narrative. You talk about doing PLC research. You talk about picking a team. You talk about getting permission from your principal. You talk about having your meeting. You talk about discussing the vision and purpose. If you do those things, you're going to create products. There's probably going to be an email out there somewhere where you contacted the principal and got permission. If not, there's probably some notes that you took when you met with the principal about getting permission to create a PLC team. When you form the team, there might be some emails out there where you say, hey, I'm just doing a PLC team. I would like for you to join me. There might be some notes that you wrote to somebody, some conversations that you documented and made as you met with people. There might have been some, when you have the meeting, there's probably going to be some invitations to the meeting. There's probably going to be an agenda. There's probably going to be minutes. There even may be a video where you held the meeting. Those are artifacts. Those are things that were created because of your actions in completing task one. Those are very important in this program, and you hang on to them. Some people like to write their narrative. They'll talk about these artifacts in their narrative, and then they'll put them in an appendix at the end for the reader to look at. Like, you know, during the PLC team, our agenda addressed this, this, and this. See Appendix A. Scroll down to Appendix A, and there's the agenda from the meeting. Some people like to put those artifacts. I think it makes for a great paper. If I can hear what you did, and then I can see what you did. I can sit here right now and tell you that I am an expert whittler. I can whittle a duck like nobody's business. I can talk to you about the exact steps, how much pressure to put on the knife, what knife to use, what wood to get, where to start and carving my duck, and how to make that duck look, and so I can sell it for $300. I can sit here and tell you that all day long. Until you actually see a duck that I have whittled out of wood, you don't know if I can back up what I'm saying, right? Same thing with what you're doing here. You can talk about doing all this. You can show us, talk about how you facilitated, how you shared your leadership skills. If you did that, then there needs to be some artifacts to back that up. I can talk to you about what a great artist I am, what canvas to use, what paints to use, what paintbrushes, the kind of brush stroke that I use. But that doesn't give me any credibility whatsoever unless I can produce something, a piece of art that backs up everything that I told you I had knowledge of. That's why those artifacts are important. We will use them later on, and we will discuss later on where we're going to use those again. But as you take notes, as you do emails, as you do agendas, have minutes from the meeting, do video clips if you lead in the meeting, save those artifacts, include them in your document, include them in your narrative at the end in the appendix. Pay attention to APA on how to use an appendix, because those artifacts are going to show something else that you're going to need to show in completing the APSL, and that's your leadership competencies. Gardner-Webb has identified 24 leadership competencies. You should be familiar with this. They're in the syllabus. They're in the scale handbook. These are the 21 competencies identified. These are the same competencies that the North Carolina School Executive Evaluation bases its evaluation on. So when you're a principal and administrator, you will be evaluated on these same competencies. That's why Gardner-Webb's already incorporated them into your program. Leadership competency of communication, change management, delegation, dialogue, judgment, systems thinking, technology, visionary. Those are the competencies that you're going to show. And how do you show that you have competency in that particular leadership skill? It's through what you've written in your narrative and the artifacts that you can produce. And that's what your last task, which is task 5 in the APSL, you're going to talk about that. You're going to talk about your activities and how your activities show the competency in each of these. And as a matter of fact, in task 1, you're to do these 8 right here, plus 4 more. And that's optional. And Gardner-Webb understands that you're definitely going to use these 8 or have the opportunity to use these 8 competencies while you're doing this task 1. But just from the very nature of the uniqueness of your environment, your particular leadership style, how you do business, there's probably 4 other competencies out there that you can customize to show what you've done in task 1. So that's why you're going to do 12 altogether. 8 has to be these right here. And then you got an option of picking 4 more. Any questions to this point?
I have a question about the other 4 competencies. So just to clarify here, so those 8 competencies, those are going to be demonstrated through our writing. what about these other 4? Those 4 also have to be demonstrating the writing as well, and they can be any 4?
Yeah, exactly. They do. Now, you don't have to like specifically address them in your narrative, task 1 through 4. And task
Right.
5 is all about pulling that information out and writing about it then. So when we get to task 4, we'll talk a little bit more about it. I'm just kind of putting it in your mind right now so you'll be familiar with it. But yeah, any 4 that you select, and they have to be addressed as well. You don't have to really talk about them in task 1. Just be aware as you're going through and writing and doing things, you might just want to make a note. Oh man, here's a great example of communication. I'm going to make a note right here so when I get to task 5, I can talk about this. Oh, here's a great artifact that shows technology. I'm going to make a note of it so when I get to task 5, I can talk about this. And so that just wanted you to be aware of it. We will go over it again. Great question, William. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, great. And I'm getting close to wrapping up. What I want to talk to you about is on September the 10th is when we'll have our first clinical coach Zoom session, and that'll be on a Thursday beginning at 7 o'clock. It's going to be your cohort, Dr. Church's cohort, but also Dr. Todd's cohort is going to be joining us as well. So basically what I'm going to be telling you, I'm going to be saying the same thing to both groups. So with my schedule, it was just better that I could put your 2 cohorts together on Thursday night. Now, there are going to be some differences. Yeah, what I will be telling you will stay the same. If there is a difference between Dr. Church and Dr. Todd, which is very minimal, I will let you know. But just if you got somebody, a friend that teaches 3rd grade and you teach 3rd grade, or you teach biology and your friend teaches biology, you're going to be teaching the same standards. You may even do your lesson plans together. But when you actually get into the teaching of that lesson in the classroom, you're going to do a little bit different than your colleague is. Dr. Church and Dr. Todd basically are on point with everything, but there are some things that they do a little bit different. So it's not that don't compare with somebody from Dr. Todd's cohort, because that's just going to add confusion. Dr. Todd's cohort, and I'm just talking about course content. Anything that you hear from me in relation to clinical coach will be the same message to both of you. And I have that luxury. I'm going to be with you for the remainder of the program. And I basically do the same thing with both groups. So I have that luxury of combining them and talking to them about it. And like I said, if there's something different, I'll let you know. It's very minimal. I can think of one thing right now that we'll talk about. The rest of the stuff is spot on. So, but know that when we meet together on September the 10th, and there will be people in there that you haven't seen before, that will be Dr. Todd's cohort. We are going to talk at that time about, like I said, how I'll be working with you, how you'll submit things to me, how you'll get review and revisions from me, and how you'll get a grade from me, and how I will lead you to the point where you submit this for evaluation and for licensure, for graduation, things like that. We'll talk about that, and we'll go over that process several times. I just wanted to mention it tonight because I want you to know right now you go into Blackboard, you go into your course shell. That's Dr. Church's shell. That's the one that he monitors and supervises, and that's the one that he interacts with you at, is your course shell. There's another shell setting out there, and Dr. Lamb has referred to it before, and I think it's already also been referred to by us last week. It's called the clinical shell, the internship shell. That's the Blackboard shell that I monitor and supervise. September the 10th, we will get into that, and we will talk about that process and how you utilize that shell. Just know that you've got 2 shells in Blackboard. Dr. Church's course shell, Dr. Bullis's clinical or internship shell. Okay, and we'll get into it more later on. There's a 3rd platform, if you will, that you'll work from called TaskStream. It'll be a while before we talk about that, but just so you'll know that that's kind of where you get to the final phase of submitting your work. You start in Dr. Church's course shell, you move on to my clinical shell, and then they interact a little bit because you'll need to communicate with Dr. Church what we've talked about in the clinical shell, and then from the clinical shell it'll go to TaskStream. Then from TaskStream, it'll go to where you're the evaluation phase. So that's kind of the progression. We'll get into that more later on. Right now, any questions about that? And I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to go through the clinical handbook real brief and talk about internship hours. Okay, so we're good.
Hey, Dr. Bullis,
Yes, sir.
before you go into internship hours, Kyoka had a question about task 1. Can I take?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you. We said last week at the beginning of the semester about how life is and how we're all adults. A few minutes ago went through all of task 1 and explained what you have to do there based on the rubric. If you look at the rubric, the last thing you have to do is to lead a PLC meeting to discuss the vision and purpose of the PLC. Well, the question that's kind of confusing because right now the way that our schools are functioning, that may be hard to do. So I understand and we get it. So don't let not being able to have that meeting slow.
Dr. Church, I'm sorry to interrupt you. It may be me, but you broke up when you said, don't let that meeting stop you. Your audio broke up and didn't catch the last part of what you said. You're on mute now. No, I'm not picking you up.
How about now?
Sound great.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. Where was I?
We understand that it'd be hard to create a PLC right
It's
now.
hard.
Don't let that stop you.
Don't let that stop where you're at. So continue to develop your tasks. If you can't meet, then go ahead, get down to that point, and still let your PLCs review or let your groups review. One other thing about your groups, currently we've had some folks drop from the course. So currently we have 4 groups of 3 individuals each in your Zoom groups. And so if somebody happens to drop, I will separate. You need more than 2 people in a group. So if we have somebody else to drop, and I hope we don't, I'm going to be separating those groups out, putting folks in other groups, but I hope that's not the case. But continue going with your task. And the plan is somehow or another, get your tasks to your peer groups, and you will review 2 other people's groups of 2 other people's tasks, task 1s, and vice versa. That needs to be completed by next week, and then that gives you the final week, another week to do your reviews and then submit them to me as an assignment. Now my grading will be either 50 or 100. So if it comes in and it needs revisions, then you're going to get a 50. And the reason I do that, I have to put something. You have to put a grade of something in there. And so I'll shoot it back a 50, but the 50 means absolutely nothing because you're going to revise it. And at the end of the day, you're going to have 100. So does that kind of clear that up a little bit? Any questions on your tasks, on task 1?
I have my question with the draft. So should we have should we still have the PLC meeting part of the task 1 completed?
It's going to have to be completed before the end of the semester, and really before you can move on to chapter 2. I mean, task 2. Because you're going to be building on task 1. However, if within this week you just absolutely can't do it because you're working at home or your PLCs, you can't Zoom or something, then continue working through your tasks. But that needs to happen quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would recommend if you can't get together, try to do the Zoom. A virtual PLC meeting is fine. Record it. Great artifact if you can do that. And if you're having problems with that, just let us know throughout the whole program. If
We'll
life
work
happens,
with you.
you get sick, God forbid, something happens that's knocks you off track, let us know from the very beginning. Deal with the situation, deal with the crisis, take care of that, make sure you're healthy and safe and your family is. But the sooner you let us know, the sooner we can adjust. And we can, this is a fluid program, and we can help you adjust based on what life happens. When I was doing my master's, I had a newborn, coaching 3 sports, and teaching a full load. I didn't even have a planning period. I was EC teacher, so I was doing, even during my planning period, I was doing stuff. Man, I tell you, if it wasn't for Gardner Webb helping me out and understanding that and adjusting with me, I'd have never made it through my master's. So just valuing that for my own personal life kind of makes it adamant that I'm going to help others do that as well. So if anything happens that's going to knock you off or delay you or slow you down, let us know from the beginning so we can kind of adjust your progress to get you caught back up.
One other question. I know we had a delay in textbooks last week. Have those come in yet? Go ahead, Starlet.
Okay, well, my books was ordered like 2 weeks ago, and I just found out today that they got lost in the mail, and that I needed to contact the bookstore tomorrow.
Okay.
By FedEx.
All right.
So
All right. Well, what's going to happen next week? You're going to meet with Dr. Bullis, and then I will send you an email at the end of the following week and tell you what our class discussion will be. And after he finishes a little bit, I will tell you kind of how I set up class. Okay.
All right. Good information. Good questions also.
Question from Ashley.
Yes.
I just need a little bit of clarification on submitting our paper for peer review. And are we recording those via Zoom with our peers? And I've read that, and I just want to clarify that process.
Okay, if you look on Blackboard, on the left-hand side under peer review materials, I have a couple of sample peer review videos. One from last spring and one from last fall, and that kind of walks you through what other people have done. Do you have to make it look like that? No, it doesn't matter. You whatever works for you. But submit it, let somebody review it, and then they critique it online. Then you critique it on the Zoom video call, and then you upload it to YouTube and submit it as a YouTube link. Did that answer?
Yes. A little bit. Are we filling out the peer review rubric?
Yes.
And submitting that as well?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and you can copy and paste the link onto the rubric, and then you submit that, and you submit the ones like William. If you do a peer review for Ashley, then Ashley, you will submit the peer review that William did for you. You submit the two that were done for you by your other 2 peers, not the ones that you conducted on your other 2 peers.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? And feel free to ask. I mean, we can finish the rest of the session asking and answering questions, and I can do internship later.
Just a quick one.
Sure.
Dr. Church, I think you implied it with what you said to Ashley there. Are we peer reviewing both people's papers in our group?
Yes. Yes, you have to have 2 peer reviews for yourself, and so that's why I try to keep 3 people. It's just easier if I have 3 people in the group. That way, you got 2 people reviewing it. Yes.
All right.
You will note that there's 2 assignments, peer review 1 and peer review 2. So you'll see both peer review assignments under each task.
Okay. Now, unless anybody else has got any questions, like I said, just going to talk briefly about internship hours. Are we good to move on, or please, if you have some questions, let's go ahead and ask them now. Okay, I'm moving on unless I get a hindsight. Ashley, you look like I can see the smoke coming out of your ears. Do you have a question? No, you good? Okay, okay. Boy, it looked like those wheels were turning. All right, so let me pull up. Okay.
I guess if our peer reviews are due by next Sunday, right? So that means our paper needs to be written and we need 2 peer reviews all by this coming Sunday. Is that correct?
No. Let me, well, there's my sheet. This coming Sunday, actually, it needs to be done by September the 10th is Thursday, September the 13th. You've got till September the 13th, because week 3 is September 10, Absol Task 1 due to peer review team. And I've got that down in under.
You're right up over the top. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
All right, good deal. Better to ask than to wonder about.
Yes,
it.
thank you.
Yep, good job. All right, clinical internship handbook. Like I said, your site supervisor probably went over I get that mixed up all the time. Sorry. Clinical coach 1 probably went over site supervisor handbook. I'm going to go into the clinical internship handbook real quick. Basically, what it does, here at the beginning, talks about the program. Talks about the requirements, talks about, how much you're going to get for each semester. There's going to be five semesters, 601 through 605. That'll be your courses. Then you're going to be enrolled, and what you already been enrolled is MELS 697. MELS 697 is the clinical part. That's the part that I supervise. If you need a 5th semester to wrap everything up, which is rare, but it does happen, it's MELS 699. But each semester, you're going to log 80 hours of internship hours, and that's based on your clinical experience. Now, that's experiences that you have at your school, that you have leadership opportunity. Did you lead a faculty meeting? Did you do a parent presentation? Did you present to the Board of Education? Did you do, and we'll come back to bus duty here in a minute, did you do bus duty? Did you supervise a ball game? Those are leadership opportunities within the school that might not really happen due to your involvement in whatever evidence that you're going to be working in the Absol. The Gardner Webb recognizes that, also gives you more opportunities to show those leadership competencies in some other areas. So that's why they ask for internship hours. Can it be things that you've done in your evidences in task 1, task 2, 3, 4, 5? Yes, it can, but that does not need to be the mainstay. That doesn't need to be the staple or the foundation of your internship hours. Those internship hours really need to be part of the opportunities that you've had outside of that within the school, that your principal has gave you to give you some leadership experience, leading that, maybe if you haven't ever sat on an IEP meeting before, sitting in on an IEP meeting, maybe sitting in on a school leadership meeting if you haven't ever done that, maybe attending a board, a meeting of the school board one night that you've never done. Those are hours that you can log, and those are your internship hours, 80 per semester. So each semester, you're going to log 80 hours. And I think it ends up being a total of 240 hours. Excuse me, not more than that, 80 hours, 400 some hours that you're going to log 80 hours given each time. Now this is for the 5 semester program. That's what you're in. Don't pay attention to the add-on if you look through this. Yeah, for a total of 400 hours. I don't know where 240 came out. Oh, that might have been the add-on people. But you will, at the end of the program, will have logged 400 hours for the whole program. So you need to document those on a form provided by Gardner Webb, and it's included in this handbook. I'm going to show it to you in just a second. And at the end of each semester, you will submit those to me. We'll go into detail more about where you submit them and when you submit them at the end of the semester later on. But you'll submit those to me, and they'll have to be the log that's completed for your 80 hours, and that will have to be signed by your site supervisor. If you see this word right here, task stream competency folio, don't worry about that right now. I'll tell you what that is later when you need to know. It's an electronic portfolio, and it's where you document a lot of this stuff, but we'll go over it later. It's in task stream. We'll go over it later. Right now, you just need to know that you need to start logging those 80 hours for this semester. And at the end of that semester, when you get ready to turn them into me, it needs to be signed by your site supervisor. You can read through all that later on, but if you do, don't let it confuse you. We'll go over it later on. So here is the document. You'll put the date down that the activity occurred, what the activity was. Now, we do need a little bit of a brief description here. You don't have to write a paragraph. You don't even have to write, a whole sentence, but something that tells me what this is. Not just say IEP meeting. I'm going to ask you, well, what about the IEP meeting? Did you lead the IEP meeting? Did you just observe the IEP meeting? Were you an active participant in the IEP meeting? So you need to give a little brief description of what it was. So if I ever have any questions to where it's unclear, I'll come back and tell you to give me some clarification. Here under competency, what competency do you think this relates to? Of the 21 competencies, what does that activity relate to? Okay, and you know, competency 1, competency 2, all the way through 21, or just write it down. Communication, dialogue, conflict resolution. You can write it there. Proof, that's really for your use only. If that activity, if there was something an artifact that you saved from it, like an agenda, or there's a video clip, that's for you to kind of make a note that in this competency, based on my internship hours, I've got proof of that competency, and this is what it is. And you can write, video clip, reference email from September the 13th. And then that's just kind of a place where you can note with yourself where that proof is for what you just said, because you can use that later on when you get into task stream. It's called an open-ended artifact. We'll talk about that later too. But here is how many hours it took you to complete that activity. And so you keep a running log, and you'll use this same template each semester, but you'll have one per semester. Don't just continue semester, semester, semester. Just make it all one log. There has to be a beginning and ending each semester. And you get your supervisor's signature here and printed name and write the total hours, and then you turn it into me. And I'll sign off of it. I'll tell you it's good to go. No, I need some more clarification. Or no, you need some more hours or whatever. Can you get more than 80 hours? Can you show more than 80 hours? Yeah, you sure can. You can do as many hours as you want, but only 80 will count for that semester. You can't roll over 80. You can't roll over hours from one semester to the next. Okay, so if you log 90, you can put 90 on here, get everybody signing off of it, and I'll tell you that it looks great. But that counts for 80, but you can't roll that 10 hours over to the next semester. You have to start at 0 the next semester. Okay. Any questions about what I just went over? Yeah, I always get a question, and you may have asked this last week. I know somebody did in one of my meetings. Yeah, I believe we did. Somebody asked, can we take hours from this semester and go ahead and log those? Yes, you can, as long as they were in preparation for this year. Not anything, not wrapping up last year, preparation for this year. Yeah, I think it was this cohort that question came up. So what's some examples of these activities that I can log for internship hours? Here they are. Here's some great, if you're struggling to find internship hours, here's some great examples. Leadership opportunities, I've already mentioned some of these. Supervision activities, technical knowledge, things of that nature. Remember, it has to be leadership. Always comes up. Well, golly, since my principal found out that I was doing this program, I'm doing bus duty every morning. I'm gonna have 80 hours of bus duty. Can I count it? No, you can't. There are some great things that happen during bus duties that's going to help you become a principal and help you become an administrator. But at some point, the value of that activity is diminished. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. Same thing if you're athletic director. I've had this question come up just this week, supervising ball games. One of the great things in this handbook is there's been an addition in related to COVID-19. Here are some great examples of what you could do to count internship hours that you may be doing and not even recognize it in relationship to log in internship hours from what's going on with COVID-19. So you can go over those as well. This is a good little document here in the handbook because this goes over each evidence. Here's the absol. What's some great artifacts do I need to be looking for that I need to be, creating that I can save? It's just what we talked about. Email for PLC permission, agenda, minutes, pictures of the meeting. And here's the competencies that relate to that. Number one is communication. I think that's dialogue and inquiry. So it outlines you right there when you need to go back to your log and say, okay, here's an example of communication. What does that competency relate to? Well, if you're going into the absol, and this is good information for you later on, is what am I doing? What artifacts am I completing in the absol? And here's the other evidences later on in the program. What competencies are they going to be relating to? And when do I do them? I'll do this in task 1, and we've already talked about that. So that's just a good little cheat sheet, if you will, that'll kind of give you, what you're going to be doing, what some of the artifacts you need to be looking towards creating, and how they're interrelated and correlated would have been a better word for the competencies. And here's all the 21 competencies that we discussed. So right up here where the numbers are, right here's the correlation to those numbers, 1 through 21. Time 21, there it is, visionary is the last. Then it goes into talking about how that's tied into the school executive standards. Don't worry about dispositions and competency analysis. We'll talk about that later on. So that basically wraps it up. Any questions that you need answered before we leave tonight? All right. Yes, sir.
Can we count hours where we're either getting paid for doing something or getting CEUs for it?
Absolutely. That's a win-win. Yeah. If it's a leadership opportunity, it's a leadership opportunity, whether you get paid for it or not. Count those hours. Okay. Great question. Great question. I saw something in the chat. If I can bring it up here. Any other?
There is no required reading for next week.
Oh.
Send that out on next Sunday. I'll send out your required reading.
All right. Unless there's any more questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Church. I will take the recording and process it through YouTube and send the link to Dr. Church, and he'll send it out to you.
All right. I don't have anything to add. Any other questions before we close? Well, guys, I hope you have a great week. I hope you enjoy. Have a good Labor Day weekend, and get that task 1 knocked out and get it to your peer review team. Okay. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to email or call either one of us, and we're there for you, and we will be there. Speaking of that, if you send me an email and you've not received a reply back within 24 hours, something has happened and it's gone to junk or spam or something. Because my goal is if I receive requests or an email from you, my goal is to have it answered before I go to bed at night. And so if you do not receive it, let me know. Contact me, because it's an oversight, but I try to reply back quickly, very, very quickly, and answer your questions. All right. I know Dr. Bullis does the same thing. All right, guys, hope you have a great week. Thanks for all you do. Bye-bye.